Good afternoon. Welcome to this April 20th, 2023 meeting of Somerville's Urban Forestry Committee. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, recently updated, this meeting will be held remotely. We are making video and audio recording, and we'll make those available on the city's website along with detailed minutes as soon as we possibly can. I am going to go ahead, as is our practice here, and promote everybody who's in the attendee list to a panelist, which means you will have the option of turning on your camera if you wish, have the option of participating in the conversation if you wish. There's no obligation to do either of those things, but it just seems like the right thing to do. All right. So our first agenda item is our introductions and housekeeping, and I would like to welcome new members to the committee. So we have Dorothy Suppet and we have Calla Taylor, and you are both very, very welcome. If you would like to, we always go around and introduce ourselves as committee members, but Dorothy, if I can just call on you to go first and introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Dorothy Suppet, and I've lived in Somerville for, I don't know, like 30 years or something like that. And I live on Spring Hill, and I'm just joined. This is my first meeting, and I'm interested in general. I love trees, and I work in regenerative agriculture, and so I have a degree in policy and planning, and so I'm interested in getting more involved in, I don't know, the physical and natural environment in Somerville and supporting improvements there. So that's why I've joined the committee.
Fantastic, welcome. And then if I could ask Calla Taylor, could you also introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Calla. I'm a sophomore at Somerville High School, and so I'm a youth member of the committee, and I'm really interested in like environmental science and like urban planning and stuff. So yeah, that's why I'm here, and I'm excited to learn.
Welcome, and I would just like to, before we proceed with other introductions, big thank you to Vanessa Bakili for running an absolutely great process by which we were very collaborative. We saw so many talented and really positive volunteers for positions in this committee. We actually had many more people than could possibly be on the committee under current ordinance.
Oh, wow.
Frankly amazing to me, given that we just started in 2019. And thank you, Vanessa, and thank you so much to every single person who applied to be on the committee. It was an abundance of riches, and we had the very best kind of challenge, a challenge of abundance. Let us then go back to the regular order where we introduce, because it's the list on my screen, in alphabetical order by first name. So Amy Myrtle, you are up.
Hi, my name is Amy Myrtle. I've been on the committee for a few years. My background is in community ecology of insects and plant interactions with insects. And so I'm interested in kind of working on our urban forest as a way to maintain wildlife as well as health benefits for people. Thank you.
Thank you. And Breck Miller, the tree warden.
Yep. Hey, everybody. My name is Breck Miller. I'm the tree warden for the city. So I handle most of the maintenance side of operations.
Looks like a nice day to take an outside meeting.
Yeah, trying to spend as much time outside as I possibly can.
Me too. Calla Taylor, you introduced yourself. I'm Chris Dwan. I'm a local activist. I'm one of the two co-chairs. Dorothy introduced yourself. Jennifer Clifford, please.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all. Welcome, Calla and Dorothy. It's great to have you on board. I'm so glad this is happening. My name is Jennifer. I live also in Spring Hill, Dorothy, and I'm a plant pathologist, and that's what I was trained in. And I just have an interest in helping the city do whatever, and helping this committee do whatever we can to plant and grow our urban forest, our green cover for all of the benefits it provides. And I'm also very interested in engaging the public and our community to help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Leigh Grossman.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the new folks. It's great to meet you. Look forward to working with you. I'm a landscape architect. I work at a firm in Boston and also a Spring Hill resident. And I'm really interested in how our residents interact with our urban forest and engage with it, and how we can plant more native species and raise awareness about the importance of our urban canopy.
Fantastic. I will go with Tori Antonino next. You are still muted, my friend.
Yep. Get it. There we go. All right. Hi, my name is Tori Antonino. I am an ecological landscaper. So I like to go into people's yards and rip out their lawn and put in meadows and savannas, and to make sure we get our pollinators back and get our bird populations up and all the good stuff that comes with that. Thank you very much to our new members. So excited to work with you. And I'm a co-chair along with Chris Swan.
Thank you. And then Vanessa Bakile, also known as Public Space and Urban Forestry Organizer.
Among other things, yeah. Yeah. Anyways, Vanessa Bukili, Senior Urban Forestry and Landscape Planner. I am in charge of lots of things related to trees in the city. Planting is one of my main priorities, and that's what's taking up a lot of my time these days. But I'm interested and excited about pretty much anything that has to do with the tree or other woody plants, or any plants really.
All right, do we have any housekeeping? Was everybody okay with the order of minute-taking responsibility that Vanessa published over email? I guess I should ask if anybody's not okay with it. Anyway, Vanessa published a schedule for minute-taking. Takes us through the next several months and includes the new folks. One of the draws of being a co-chair is that you get left out of the rotation on taking minutes. I'm going to come back to that in coming months as we circle back to the question of rotating the chair positions, which we had said we would do annually, and we have not done in more than a year, I think. So anyway, start thinking about whether you would like to not have to take minutes and instead of that occasionally chair a meeting. Yes, Vanessa.
Just one other housekeeping thing, just to keep everyone in the loop. We do have one additional vacancy still, the urban forestry expertise vacancy. We have made a recommendation to the mayor, so it's awaiting for approval.
All right, and that'll get us to full force. Awesome. So next up, we have resident concerns, which is we always put at the top of the agenda. And so I will ask if anybody who's in the audience wishes to introduce yourself and share what brought you here, any particular concerns, and also concerns that we've brought forward from the community to committee members. So Ann Ryan, I do see you.
There, I'm unmuted.
Yes.
I think, yes. I live at Cobble Hill, and a group of tenants is demonstrating weekly, and we have a slot at the city council meeting next Thursday, the 27th. And I wanted to ask for, this group of tenants knows that we want to ask for the preservation of the existing parking, trash removal space, berm, and trees. We're very concerned about that. So I wanted to ask your advice about what you think the city council needs to hear.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
I was thinking it would make sense. And congratulations, Anne, for getting this, by the way. I think it would make sense to resubmit the letter that Amy Myrtle wrote, and put it in, make sure it gets into the public record. And I can search for it now and send it to the city council. And I think Peter Forsalisi, I think he's the person to get it into the public record. And I'll CC you, Vanessa. Does that make sense to people? There we are.
Yes, I think that what we can speak to, Anne, is the trees. And we provide support in this memo here that Amy made last
I
year.
remember. Yes.
And I think this is the best, in my opinion, I think this is the best way we can support the Cobble Hill residents to keep those trees, because that is in our best interest as well. So we can support that part of it with this memo, and we can remind City Council of our support for keeping those trees.
Good.
Do you know if there'll be public comment at the meeting? I guess I
Well,
probably could look at the agenda and see, but
say that again, please.
are they going to offer, like, after, I guess what the format will be, will you be presenting something to them, and then will there be, I guess I'm just wondering, like, if any of us came and they had, questions, or, if we were there to support in some way, if that's useful, or if they wouldn't be opening it to public comment anyway.
We are in the public comment section.
Oh,
And
okay.
as I understand it, we've been pushed up to the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
And if there's time, we have 5 minutes.
Okay.
I want to talk about the long-term value of the work that the park has been doing for the city. And the fact that that can be both maintained but also expanded. And that has value in the face of what we are seeing globally. It has value that is far beyond the monetary value that's being placed on the 3 plots that the city is dividing the park into. And I would like to stress that to the city councilors if there's a chance to do so.
I will share that I make a habit of attending the city council meetings in person. It's an odd hobby, but it's mine. And so I will be there absolutely in support of what you're doing.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, congratulations on getting that space. It's good to have a city councilor or two who will sponsor you to speak in, and a lot of people do track, especially at the beginning of those meetings. So it's a good venue.
Good. Good, thank you.
Right. And I think we should probably reaffirm our support for this memo with a quick vote. Are we allowed to do the does anybody object, or do we still have to call everybody's name and say aye?
I think we should do a roll call vote. Also, our new members have probably never seen this before, so we may want to give them a few minutes to read it over. I don't even think Brooke has seen this.
Okay, it's on the website as well, and I'm also happy to scroll up and down on it.
Perhaps we should give an overview to, I don't know if I'm volunteering to do this. I guess I am. This is around 90 Washington Street, which is a proposal for a public safety building, and amongst other potential developments. It is a proposal from the city. It is adjacent to the Cobble Hill residence. There is a significant berm with, I don't know, 60-year-old trees. I can't put a very old tree, well, for human lifespan, older trees. And the residents there as Ann said, want to keep them. And Amy Myrtle drafted a document on, well, in January of 2022, asking that this project preserve the trees that are there. And this was something that the Cobble Hill residents also are asking for. So that's the general overview. And I see we have someone in the chat. No.
We have a question. Sorry, it's challenging to run these.
I'll try to do the chat. No, I think it was
I
just.
think the chat is just the link to the memo.
Just the link.
All right. So
yeah, and a couple things that the memo mentions in particular about these trees is, what makes them unique is really their age, and also the fact that they are pine trees, which are often a little difficult to grow in urban areas because they're so salt intolerant. So having, they're not trees. I mean, no mature tree can be easily replaced, but these are particularly difficult. And the fact that they're evergreens means they're around year round, and they have higher benefits for removing pollution, especially in that area that's so high in poor air quality. So there's some, they're not that any tree it doesn't have value, but these have this particular unique value of kind of those factors that they have that would be really hard to replace.
Yeah.
I would like to say most of these trees are Austrian pines, and I think they do have decent salt tolerance for specific species.
All the better. I have a quick thought here. Just would it be worthwhile to update this memo to the current April 2023, stating simply that in January 20th, 2022, we asked these pines be given special consideration, and then just one line saying we remain committed to this memo, that we are current and we are staying on top of this thing, and we remain supportive of this, of keeping these trees, and just updating this memo.
Yeah.
I like that. Could we just capture it? That feels like a one-liner. We remain committed to.
Exactly. Yeah, we could just change that we asked to we asked, make that past tense, and then next line, we remain committed to this request, or this, I don't know, probably think of a better word than that, but.
So since we're doing that, let me just see if I can capture this in a quick document, just so we all know what we're talking about. And steering these things all at once is always fun. So you should now see an untitled document. January 20th.
As you type that, I'm just going to add a little more information. After this memo came out, when Breck came on board, we reviewed all the trees on site to get more detailed information about what is there, their condition, and all that. So we do have information, more information now than we did when this letter was written, or this memo. I don't recall off the top of my head all of those details. And I think this letter is still has the right language, and it doesn't go into the details about that, but there is some information and a memo, I believe, that I provided to the capital projects team describing the condition of the trees. So I'm going to try to dig that up and link that as well. People to review.
That'd be great.
So what if we just said the Urban Forestry Committee remains committed in our support for the city to retain as many of the trees at 90 Washington Street as possible, as described in the memo originally approved on January 20th, 2022. All right, I would move that. So that's basically the motion, Jennifer, that you were proposing.
Yes.
Is that how you wanted it?
Yeah, I wonder if we could just take it all the way and just say for the city to retain the trees at 90 Washington,
Yeah.
assuming that maybe they'll come back anyway, but just to put it out there that we're interested in saving the trees, especially our mature trees.
If we want to go for it, we could add the trees in the community space.
Yes, yes,
That's what we're talking about here, right?
right.
I'm not sure, are you trees and community space? I mean, I am open to a rethinking of the community space. You're just thinking like maintaining the berm with the trees. Like I'm trying to just think of saying that we're supporting keeping the community space as is. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like.
You know, you are right. It opens a whole bag of worms. I am a little bit worried about the rest of our agenda if we try to edit this in too much detail. But retain the trees at 90 Washington, as described in our memo of January 20th last year. I agree. It's the community space is a more complex discussion, and this committee gets to talk about trees and understory plantings.
Right. Yeah, so if we place this sentence right at the top of that to make just to get that right up front, be sure they see that part. I think that could help strengthen our commitment to that. Excellent.
Any further thoughts on this? All right, let's do a roll call vote on the motion that's on the screen. And where are my attendees? On the motion on the screen, Amy Myrtle.
Approve.
Breck Miller.
Approve.
Cal Taylor.
Approve.
I approve, but I wrote it. Jennifer Clifford.
Approve.
Leah Grossman.
Approve.
Vanessa Bukili.
Approve.
Tori Antonino.
Approve.
We have unanimously affirmed our support.
Great. Thank you.
I mean, you didn't ask me.
I'm sorry, I went down my list. Are you not on? Oh, there you are.
I don't know.
Goodness.
I approve.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you for speaking up and keeping me honest. All right, let us return then to the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm glad to see the progress you're making.
Yep.
Show back to Acrobat, back to the agenda. And we were still in resident concerns. So returning to the normal order of business, are there additional resident concerns that anybody wants to raise? And Crystal, as sometimes happens, I am unable to promote you to a panelist, but I am unmuting you and allowing you to see the attendee list. That's what GoToWebinar will allow me to do.
Ooh, I don't know why GoToWebinar hates me, but hello, everyone.
Hello. Any other concerns before we move on to updates from the city? All right, we're on to updates from the city. So, Breck, I think this is your show. You sent us a 2.5-page memo of tree removals. I'm interested.
Yeah, so we've got a pretty big list coming up.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. This new memo, are we going to just be resubmitting the same memo with the introduction as part of the email, or are we going to have to get our, with this new wording, put it, in a document with our letterhead.
I would say my suggestion is that one of us, you, me, or Vanessa, write an, I would say you or me, Tori, write an
Yep.
email to the city council and the city clerk saying the Urban Forestry Committee met, we voted on this statement reaffirming our support for the attached memo.
Yep. Okay.
I would rather not go down the rat hole of trying to edit up a whole new document, and then
Yep.
I don't feel like we voted on a shiny new document. And then that makes its way via a process I do not understand into the minutes of the city council meeting. And so then we can reference it. All right, I apologize, Breck.
That's okay. So yeah, I sent out a list of about 40 or so removals that we've got coming up for next week and the week after. I did make a few last minute changes to that, so I'll send out the updated list tomorrow, and I'll try to update my contact list so the whole group is getting it, including our new members. But basically, what's left or what's on that list is sort of what's left of our moderate risk trees that really need to come down. So that's a good thing. We still do have quite a few trees that are on the removal list that I have categorized sort of as low priority, which means they're either small diameter, not very hazardous, or we have lots and lots of small Norway maples that are kind of declining and at some point will need to be removed. But when that happens is kind of up for debate. So we are getting towards the end of sort of the backlog that I inherited and have also added to. So we're getting there in terms of not having quite so many removals, but all of these, like I said in the email, are condition based, so it's sort of dead, dying, hazardous trees. And if anybody has any questions about specific addresses, I'm happy to look into it.
Have these, there's a lot of different streets here. Have you flyered or notified the community in any way?
Yeah, so I have been flyering each tree. So I've sort of changed my approach. Like, we were putting out letters to the closest 20 abutters for each tree. I think it's actually a little bit more transparent to just flyer the tree so that anybody who's walking by can see that it's happening. It's got the tree's email address, so we've gotten a few questions already, but yeah, basically all of these trees have been posted well in advance, and if anybody has any concerns, they can reach out to us.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions about tree removals? Excellent.
And then the other thing to note, in case anybody missed it, if nobody has questions about removals, is we do have a tree hearing coming up next Thursday.
All right, let's look at that. Go ahead, Tori.
So the trees that are hazardous, dead and dying, do they require a tree hearing?
They do not. Per MGL 87, if it's a hazardous situation, then that's not something that requires a tree hearing.
I was reading some of the reasons, and I think about it like, let's say hollow trees, for example. I understand they might not be safe for being on the street, but it's part of a life cycle of a tree where it actually that's when it starts to really become habitat for creatures. And I'm just wondering if in certain areas, like in our parks, if we can really be conscious of either leaving a significant portion of the tree, if it needs to be cut down, a significant portion of it up as a snag, or just just recognizing that a cavity in a tree does not necessarily, first of all, make it completely hazardous. And
Yeah, I inspect each one of these trees. I'm not removing anything strictly because it has a cavity. You know, if we're removing it, it's because either myself or Malik or Vanessa has looked at this tree and decided that the risk of keeping it standing is greater than whatever benefits the tree may provide. I agree with you. Like, I'm on the same page in terms of retaining snags where we can. All of these trees on this list are street trees, so I don't think that's necessarily appropriate in any of these cases. But you know, it's certainly something I'm open to in a park setting if that situation arises.
Thank you, Breck.
Jennifer Clifford.
Breck, I have a question about the smaller trees. What is the possibility, probability, the realistic, feasible, can they be replanted, like that 7-inch diameter blue spruce, for example? Can any of those be moved to away from under power lines to a park, or can any of these be saved and reused somewhere?
The ones for the tree, I'm assuming you're talking specifically about the tree.
I'm talking about what we're seeing right now for the tree removals for the tree hearing list.
The spruce, I think, would be too big. Yeah, it was 7 inches when it was inventoried a few years ago. I think it's bigger than that now, so it would need like a pretty major tree spade to come in. Like, I think it's probably beyond our capabilities to really move it, and I'm not sure that it would survive. And then the other one is a Norway maple that probably isn't.
Yeah, I don't care about that. But yeah, so I was just wondering if there was a size, like, would that be a possibility? What would that size be? Of course, it probably would depend on the species. It just
yeah,
crossed my mind.
We don't, the city doesn't have a tree spade, so you know, it's something we could look into contracting, I guess, if there was any situation that arose that, like, where there really was a tree that was worth saving and we thought we could save. I don't know offhand. Like, you know, I feel like anything over 7 inches or something like that is probably pushing it, but it's not something that I've really thought much about. So, you know, at some point, maybe it's something to explore. But with that said, both of these trees on Highland, we're holding the tree hearings just so that if and when the time comes to remove them, we've got, you know, we're just kind of throwing them into this tree hearing because we had to have the tree hearing for the 625 McGrath tree. I don't really have any intention, to be honest, of taking these trees down anytime soon. Like, they're both very low priority in my book. You know, the fact that the spruce is planted too close to a pole is not really a big issue in my mind. So we're putting these onto the tree hearing so that we may be able to one day take them down, but they realistically probably will stay standing for at least a while at this point.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you just ask it or do you raise your hand? What's the protocol here?
We're kind of preforming it here. Just go ahead and ask.
Okay, so what is a tree hearing? Who attends? How are decisions made? Like all that basic stuff.
So basically in Massachusetts, per Massachusetts law, to remove any city tree basically in the public right of way that is not a hazardous tree, the city, before removing the tree, has to hold a public tree hearing. So all you know, we post it on the city website, we advertise it in the newspaper, try to get the word out however we can, and then basically anybody that objects to the removal of the tree has a chance to show up at the tree hearing and voice their concerns. And then ultimately, if there are any objections to the tree removal, then we will make a recommendation to the mayor, and the mayor will have to sign off one way or another, or not one way or another, but the mayor would have to sign off on the removal.
I highly recommend, if you haven't read the thrilling Chapter 87 of Mass General Law, it's actually really informative. And yeah, exactly what Brett said. It provides a process where if anybody speaks up in opposition, the city has to hold a hearing and announce it in certain ways. And then if anybody files verbal or written objection, then formally speaking, the mayor decides. I would just add that by the time it comes to a tree hearing, I suspect the mayor is pretty well informed. Staff have already made a recommendation. They've got reasons. And so it is really quite likely that the mayor is going to go with their recommendation. Doesn't mean that people should not speak their mind, but it's the late stage in the tree hearing in the process of deciding to remove a tree makes it more of a tree telling to my mind. Like the city is announcing a thing and giving people a chance to speak. That's a lot of the reason this committee exists, is to have a space where we can talk a lot earlier about things when we're still in the decision and planning stage.
Got it. Thank you.
Just a minor clarification. That is often true, Chris, that a lot of the trees, are being proposed for removal due to a certain reason, but we have had people look at alternative solutions when there are objections, and like the ones on Highland Road in this case, we can delay removal of some of these trees. We're sort of gathering information to see if there's any strong objections in some cases, although in many cases there's a project going on that necessitates a removal or something like that. But we're trying to give some more voice to the public in these hearings too.
Cool, I appreciate it, thank you. And I will say for my part, I am torn on this idea of holding a hearing and then having a dead tree walking that could be, like we've already done the permission to remove. It has the potential to confuse people. Like I love the idea of surfacing it and getting input when you realize there's a potential conflict. That feels right to me. I would just say when the time comes, potentially years in the future, let's be sure to do a really solid outreach so that people are not confused and think there was no hearing just because it was years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, it's basically just a question of contract capacity at this point and where we're focusing our resources. Yeah, I mean, what I should have said is we're focusing on hazardous trees first, and these trees have a ways to wait in line. But
Right. So any further conversation about the tree hearing and the tree removal?
Yeah, Chris, could you go back to your previous screen? This is you, man, right? Can you go down a little, because I get confused about this. So any in accordance with MGL Chapter 87, any objections of the removal must be submitted in writing to the tree warden prior to or at this public hearing. Okay, all I saw was prior to, and I'm like, we got to get away from that. But or at the public hearing. My question is.
All right. And we're still advertising in the Somerville Times because that's the paper we got. All right. Any further conversation on tree removal? All right. Let's do private tree removal permits and exceptions. Do we have Malik or anybody
Malik
to speak?
is here.
Hey.
Hello. Okay. Howdy. So I've been updating the sheet. The private tree removals for 2023 are quite slow. So I'm expecting a tree removal permit application to be submitted for Craigie Street very soon, and associated with that permit, I'm expecting a exemption. I don't have an address yet. I just got a heads up from a tree company, so I'll be. I just referenced that very briefly in the sheet, so I could keep a mental note. So a lot of this is live, and a lot of details change over time. So I've received, I have a lot of permits still pending because no one likes to give me all the information at once. So I'm usually just sitting on a few cases, whereas people need to get back to me in terms of plans or there's a discrepancy in information. So for instance, with 186 Central Street, I received a permit application, but the sizes look off. So the pictures and the sizes aren't correlating in my mind. So I need to make sure that they actually give me the right size. So whenever there's a discrepancy that's that stark in my mind, I usually end up going on site and verifying. So there's a few permits that's been issued. 8 Berkeley Street has been issued to remove one 28-inch tree, 126-inch tree, and they're replacing 28 inches. 33 Porter is still pending. That's rather new. And I just need to receive all the information, the plans. In most cases, people do not give me plans, and then there's a lot of back and forth. So permits don't get issued sometimes for months because there's just a fall off in communication, and I'm begging people for more clarification and documentation. So there's that. I'm actually going to issue a permit for 156 Albion, which is from last year. If you slide on over to the 2022 permits applications tab and go up to 156 Albion, they finally gave me information that I needed, and there's been some reliable back and forth. They tried to get an exemption, but they did not prove their case strong enough, so they have to replace the inches with 16 trees being planted. So that's good news. In terms of exemptions, I need to update, but 11 Fennel Road has been removed recently. There goes that Craigie Street that I referenced before. And then there's the Manning Young High School, which I believe was the last I told you about last month. So I'll update this sheet as I'm focusing my efforts more on the tree preservation ordinance permits and exemptions. This sheet hasn't been updated recently because I've been in the field doing a lot of inspections. Any questions?
I think we've brought this up before, but for folks who are replanting, once we have an approved, or are you sending them our recommended species handout that we currently have? And once we have a new fresh one, is that something that you could share with residents who are planning to replant? Or do you approve the species? I guess that's the first question.
They can plant whatever they want so long as it's not invasive. We do not we could give them information if they ask,
If they're open to it.
and it doesn't harm. So if we have species that you guys recommend, then sure, but we cannot require them to plant a certain species. But more information is always good.
Great. Yeah, I think once we have our new handout, that would be awesome if that's something that we could share, share with folks as they're considering what to plant. And then, yeah, obviously not mandatory, but a resource.
Yeah, I usually require them to plant things that make sense. Don't plant trees too close together. Don't plant them too close to your house if it's going to become a tree versus foundation or sewer infrastructure issue. Don't plant in complete shade. I remember a developer tried to plant in between 2 buildings, and I'm just like, that's not even viable. So yeah, these considerations are always on my mind, and if we have an easy reference point for them to just plant species that are more sustainable or better for the environment, then yeah, that's a good idea.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions on permits and exemptions, including on the process around it?
Process, yes. Process, and I guess on the 2023 tab, I think it was. There were a lot of other process, what our role is, and yeah. I understand in general what's happening, but I don't understand what this committee's role is, or yeah. So I guess that's all my questions.
Our role is mostly, I'll go ahead and take that because it's been on my mind. We, in 2019, I believe, passed the tree preservation ordinance, which consolidated and clarified a whole bunch of the roles and responsibilities and created this committee. As a part of that, we created a permit process for the removal of trees on private property, where if a tree is of a certain size, more than 8 inches DBH, and is not invasive and is not hazardous, then the owner has to apply for a permit. If they are the owner occupant of a 3-unit or less, then they get an exemption immediately. So owners get to do as they wish with their property. Owner occupants of small number of units get to do what they wish with their property. And beyond that, the permit is contingent on either showing a plan that you're going to replace DBH with new plantings, or paying into the tree fund at a rate that matches our approximate cost for planting a DBH inch on city property, which works out to, I think, about $500 an inch was what we've been using.
It would be $600 an inch, and
$600 an inch.
we'll update that yearly as our cost increase.
And I will just say that this is, when it was passed, people didn't know if it was legal. People didn't know what was going to happen. And from where I sit, we've generated a whole lot of plantings. We've gotten transparency about when people are removing large numbers of trees, and we've generated a bunch of cash for the tree fund. So I think it's worked out okay. But this is absolutely an experiment that we're doing in the city, and other cities like Boston are looking at it to see if this process works, if we get sued, if we lose, So a big part of the role of this committee is to be well informed about what's going on and be sure that it's all done out in the open and very publicly. It is also the case that if you want to know if there was a tree permit issued, you can go to a website called CitizenServe that's linked off of the city website and dig in by address and see what permits are issued for a certain address. That's the formal way. This spreadsheet is an informal way that the committee uses to communicate.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Did I miss anything there? All right. I'm going to ask the committee's wisdom here. After our meeting, and this is on the topic of tree removals and the city's staff updates. After our meeting, I'm going to bring a draft onto the screen and ask if people are interested in, can I even do this? There we go. Last week we talked about the tree crew, and we had some comments about why it's good to have in-house staff for the tree crew. I tried to put those into a short statement that says we think it would be good to have in-house staff for the tree crew. I am happy to wait a month and have this on the agenda for realsies if people want to think about it more deeply, but I'm also happy to talk about it now, unless anybody thinks that because it's not on the agenda that would be inappropriate.
I will say the only thing I will say is that it does sound like we may really be getting close to actually filling those tree crew positions. So it may be that if we give it a little bit of time, it won't actually be necessary to put this out. Fingers crossed. I really don't know, and I'll believe it when I see it, but it does sound like real progress has been made.
Okay. I'll take, I mean, you're the interested party and I'm trying to help. Would you prefer to give it a month, or would you prefer to have this on the books?
I would say let's give it a month and see what materializes and take it from there.
All right, we have a draft in our back pocket if you want the committee to discuss and and maybe say, please do hire the tree crew. The positions have been open for several years for reasons that I don't fully understand, but I think there's a lot of benefits. But I'm totally comfortable waiting. That is absolutely fine with me.
Sounds good. I hope to have updates for you soon.
All right. So that brings us to spring tree planting.
That's me. It's spring. It's lovely out. So we are planning to plant at least 175 trees this season to get to our goal of planting 350 trees each year. Leahy Landscaping is our contractor. They won the bid. Malik went and tagged trees while I was on vacation a few weeks ago. They are coming from Tuckahoe Nursery in New Jersey, and it's a little bit warmer there, so things were popping. So he tagged some beautiful trees, I hear. We got a lot of different species. I shared some tentative lists with you, and I got a lot of comments, but was on vacation, so didn't review them all in total detail. And it was also a really quick turnaround for me working on vacation to get to my contractor and then Malik going down the next day. So I'm not sure I was able to capture all of your recommendations for this season, but we'll keep them in mind in the future. I did have on my list some crab apples and the Japanese tree lilac, which were highly debated. And those two species were actually already blooming, so they weren't able to dig them for spring planting anyways. I can send out a list of the trees that we did select, but a few fun ones that are pretty new for me. We got 10 red buds, so we're gonna try those out, people. Some exciting, we got some tulip trees that are sort of a shorter form. So I got 10 tulip trees, and I got 10 sweet gums, which have low, a variety that has low, there we go, that has low fruiting. So sweet gums, they get nervous about planting in street tree areas because of the spiky balls. But this is a cultivar that has few, if any, balls. And then various oaks, some elms, a few zelkovas, but not too many, a bunch of nissas, a bunch of cherries. Cherries are my only short, well, cherries and red buds are my only short trees this year. And a handful of a few other things. I have my first list of about 80 sites that the contractor is going to start working on probably next week, and I'm still finishing the remaining sites. But that's the progress so far. Any questions or comments?
Go ahead. I just have a question about how this, in terms of relating to our adopted tree program. So, I know you sent me a list before of all the trees. Did that include the trees you assumed that would be planted, and do we have to update that now based on what you did get, or?
So the adopted tree, the list only includes what was planted last year, so last spring and last fall, because of the timing of when we put out tags and when I have information about where the new trees are going. I did get a bunch of extra tags printed, so if I can swing it, I can put the tags out on the new trees when I inspect them. But then you'll have to, I don't know. We'll have to, I guess I'll have to give you a spreadsheet so that we can keep track somehow. I don't know. Well, you can discuss that offline.
Yeah.
If you need that data or not.
Yeah, well, I'm working on this year trying to put together a Google map that people could go to just to see all the trees that are up for adoption and which ones have been adopted, and also for ourselves to see like what areas we're getting adoptions in, which we haven't really mapped out before. So it would be helpful. Anything that we get tagged that we could then add to that map, just so it's we have all the data in one place, I think would be
great.
So we'll figure out how to do that.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Awesome.
All right. And I just go ahead, Tori. Sorry.
You got Amelanchier too, right? That was a
I did not, but they didn't have any available. But I will make sure we get some in the fall because I think red bud's fall dig hazard, and I get crab apples in the fall for sure, but we'll need more small trees.
Maybe by then we'll have our unicorn. I'm thinking striped maple. I know
I
it might
think
suffer.
I've never seen that in a like 2-inch caliper size, but we can keep looking.
Leia, is that our pilot tree?
It might still be too small for the pilot. It would be a park pilot for sure. Or just plant in a, yeah. I also would like to see, I've only seen it at Native Plant Trust on a nursery list. But we should hunt. We should, yeah, see if we can find it in other nurseries and see if it's sweet.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe Summer Nova will want to buy us one because I have it on their list of plants. So anyway, oh, can I ask about that? So how is Summer Nova, they are planting 10 trees every year. So are they giving you funds?
Yeah, so they gave me money to plant 10 trees. I need to set up a meeting with Spring Hill people, but I don't really know how to go about that. Does anyone have any like Spring Hill contacts? I don't know how to advertise for that. So
I mean, other than
to ask you guys.
I'm in Spring Hill. What do you? I get the word out.
Yeah, tell our city councilor. He has a large list of people that he contacts at least in Ward 3. I don't know if that covers all of Spring Hill or not.
That's a great idea.
There's also a couple
Chris,
neighborhood
I'll reach out to you.
Google groups.
Sorry, there's a Google group, Leia?
Well, I know I'm part of one of them. I'm sure there's multiple, but
okay.
Disseminate.
I'll try to set up a date. I need to figure out what to ask people to comment on, but
there's also been good, like with the sewer separation project, there's a lot of those community meetings that the city gives, and I know they're giving updates on, 100 trees are going to be planted, and this is the time frame that it's going to happen. So I'm curious when the worlds are going to collide, because there's all talk of bump outs and rain gardens and lots of things that sound very exciting. And in all of our conversations, I'm like, all right, let's see how this is going to happen. It seems like a great opportunity and something we should bring in the person who came and spoke to us about bioretention based. It seems like there's a lot of opportunity for overlap in conversations we've been having, and it seems like a great opportunity. So we should keep talking about it.
That neighborhood is definitely aware of street work right now, I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, okay, so if we're on lists and we have ideas, should we send them to you via email, Vanessa? And just let you be
or if you send them to us.
I feel like, a lot of the groups, you have to be on the group to post. So why don't I figure out like a date and what I'm going to do, what I'm going to say, more or less, so I can send out like a meeting link, and you guys can share it with your networks.
Awesome.
I'll send it to UFC. Thank you. That's very helpful.
All right. Anything else about spring tree planting, inclusive of Spring Hill? All right, Prospect Hill Wedding Nook.
Yes. So I asked this to be on the agenda just to see if there are any updates. The request, I don't know if I made it a formal motion, which I wish I had done. I don't know if it's too late to do that, or maybe to make sure that the plants were sourced from nurseries that are have genetically wild origins, versus a lot of like Cavicchio's the main, traditional nursery. They grow their stock by clones versus having it come from a seed. And so, and the importance of that is clones kind of bottleneck the evolutionary process and sort of survival of a species. If it's, you know, if 100 trees are all the exact same genetics, it could be a very swift death for all of them if something were to take them out. So it's very important to have genetic diversity, and that is a focus on some of our nurseries, especially native plant ones, and the word is getting out. So that was my request. And Vanessa, I just wanted to know if you had any updates and how things are going.
Not a ton of updates. I did convey the recommendation to source plants with, you know, wild type origin and genetic diversity. So that has been expressed. I express it every time that we talk about it to the people who have to buy the trees. So they're going to do their best to do that. The plan is still to have PSUF work with DPW to order the plants, and DPW will do the planting. Plants have not been ordered, but there's going to be some movement in trying to source them next week. So I re-stressed wild type, please. So they'll do their best to find what they can. There's like big numbers of individuals of each species. So some of the smaller nurseries just might not have the numbers that we need, but they're going to call around and see what they can do.
I have a question on maintenance, where it was planted up on Prospect Hill and it maintenance didn't happen. Have we fixed that? Do we have a plan to maintain the wedding nook?
I believe there's discussions to incorporate the wedding nook into the horticulturalist contract. I think that's the plan.
Okay, I think it would be a real good idea to maintain it.
Yeah,
So
I'm pretty sure there's no irrigation there, so it'll take some maintenance for sure. For now, you know, DPW will maintain it until we can find another way to get it done. Community group, Friends of Prospect Hill Wedding Nook. Antonino, looking at you.
Yep. No, that's a possibility. Part of my reasoning for hoping that we can get plants that have genetic diversity would be so we could then harvest the seeds and get those plants in people's yards so that they're able to plant plants with, I call them wild caught plants. So yes, absolutely, that's on my list. Is the plantings, are you looking at plugs or quartz or larger sizes?
No. Don't remember. I don't know. It might be a mix, but I don't know.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions of how I might help have this become a reality versus sort of an aspiration to plant with wild genetics?
I mean, I think you're assuming there's going to be a problem, and we don't know for sure if there is. So
okay,
maybe we wait and see how the phone calls work out and what sourcing is available. And if it doesn't work out the way that you think that you are hoping, and we all hope this season, then we can try to think about a future, like how we can help more in the future. But I gave them the list of nurseries that we discussed last time. There's some other ones that other folks in PSUF mentioned. So, you know, there's a few places to call. As if you find more places that have you know, the types of wild type plants available and they have large numbers, send those our way and we can call them like, we want to do this too. It's easier for vendors that are already in the city system, but it's not restricted solely to that. So, you know, I think that's where we're going to start, but there's a ton of nurseries out there. So if you know specific ones, we can add them to the list of things to look into now and or in the future.
Okay, that sounds really good. Thanks, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to support Tori on this, there's a virtuous cycle that will take hold if we, a city, keep asking for things when we call around in our RFPs. And like right now, they're hard to find because not enough people are asking. And so I'm totally in favor of making a bit of a fuss. And yeah, it'll be a bit more work for us, but this is how we get nurseries to stock these things and to grow them for us. All right, so we have a tradition of looking at the job postings and the RFPs and seeing if they're, sorry, Vanessa, go ahead.
Sorry, there's something I didn't put on here, but it's a city update, so thought I could squeeze it in real quick, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
We had our first SPAP, Somerville Pollinator Action Plan Advisory Committee, SPAP AC, meeting last week. So Amy is on the committee as well as Breck and I. So we are going to be meeting bi-weekly for the foreseeable future, trying to work through a bunch of precedent plans and work on an RFP, which is for the new people. What is an RFP?
Request for proposal.
Thank you. Forgot what the R was. Request for proposal. So that's to get a consultant on board to help write the actual Somerville Pollinator Action Plan. But first, we need to write a scope of work for this consultant. So that's what the committee will be doing first. So seeing what types of information are in other plans and then write what we want to have in ours so that we can hire a consultant to guide the process. So it was a great meeting. We just sort of met everybody and got some background information from a fellow who was working with PISA last summer to get this project, the thought child of this project started. And Allison Moore, new PISA ecological restoration planner, is spearheading the effort to create the pollinator action plan, and also she's guiding the committee in the process. So any other key things to say about that, Amy or Breck?
No, like you said, it was introductory meeting. Everyone seemed really excited to participate. The presentation by the Harvard student was a really valuable way to frame things. And I admit I have not yet gone through the work we have to do for Monday, so I still have to do that this weekend, but I will.
And there'll be ways for the public to participate through the Summer Voice page, which was set up. I'll go dig that up and put the link in the chat. So there will be information. There's lots of information. Basically, all the information the committee sees will be on the Summer Voice page, so you can keep up to date there, and we'll report back regularly.
Excellent. For me, is this the kind of bi-weekly that means twice a week, or the kind that means every other week?
Twice a week would be a lot. This is every other week with lots of homework in between.
That would be super intense. Okay, so every other week. Very cool. I'm glad that's moving. Any other thoughts on the SPAC Act? All right, halfway through the agenda, little over halfway through the allotted time. We can do this. Job postings and RFPs. We look at the job postings on the city and just check in that there's nothing we're missing. I am looking, I'll throw this up on the screen. I didn't see anything that looked terribly relevant to this committee. I was down in Parks and Recreation, lifeguards, recreation laborers, pool managers.
There's one planner position, but it seems more broad planning, but still peripherally relevant.
Potentially. Is that our kind of planner? Do you know?
Excuse me?
Sorry, I was asking Vanessa.
It's probably in,
It's
I
in
don't know why it doesn't
strategic
say. It's
planning.
probably in the planning department, so more like development
Yeah.
review.
Strategic planning and community development.
Well, that's my overall
Or
department
that's your
too.
overall department.
Yeah. There's like 5, 10 divisions in that overarching group.
So are there any roles open that we should be telling our friends about, telling qualified colleagues about?
Well, we still have yet to fill that conservation commissioner vacancy. So I've updated the posting to be until filled. And I've been reaching out to people who previously applied as well.
Cool, good to know. All right, unless there are more questions on that. All right.
I just also, Groundwork Somerville is hiring. They're looking for somebody. I forget, I don't know the position, but they're looking, and I did see, you know, the DPW has a heavy operating position slash, you know, grounds position open, which isn't exactly just, you know, it's not necessarily gardening, but for anyone listening, that looks like it's still open.
City has a lot of open jobs. All right, we should probably talk about Arbor Day.
Okay, that's me again. So thank you all for filling out your availability. Although the most of us are available on Sunday, May 7th, which is when I was thinking we should do it, that is only 2 weeks away and I cannot get that done. So let's go with May 20th, which is the next most available time. I did reserve Glen or Capuano Playground for both those days, so we can hold it there. The field is being used from ridiculously early in the morning until 10 p.m. at night, so we can't do anything on the field, but I think we can safely be in the playground and get lots of passersby and people who are there on purpose. So May 20th, I need to choose a time, but I was thinking the afternoon. So there's that. That also means that I will actually probably have trees planted in the ground by then and can arrange that with my contractor. So they're planted, you know, just before the event, which will be nice for our usual activity of spreading the mulch and talking about new trees. I can also order seedlings from the Arbor Day Foundation. They have some different tree seedlings available. We did this not last year, but a few years ago. One interesting one is I like to choose smaller statured trees because most of Somerville yards are quite small. They have flowering dogwood available for seedlings. They also have crepe myrtle, which I've been interested to see if would live here. No, Leah, no good.
Yeah,
How come?
It dominates so much of the South. I don't want that for our future. That was my facial response.
I agree.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
thinking because it does
They
well
are
in the
cool
South,
looking.
climate change, you know, it may do well here. But total veto. Okay, got it. I'll share around the list. So I can probably pick 2 different species if you guys want to think about other ones. So then we can get 2 different ones.
Is there a possibility? Is there a possibility to get some like milkweed that we can give away?
Sure.
Check off the box for mayor's Monarch pledge?
Absolutely. Yeah, I know you mentioned that last time and I didn't take enough notes to remember if that was something that you had available or if I should plan to order some.
Let's just order like a few, I don't know. I want to be like 10 flats. That's 500 seedlings. You know, it's $1 a seedling. If, yeah, that would
We
be
can definitely
my
afford that. Is there somewhere, like if we don't get them all given away, do they have a home? Will they have a home? I know last year we used a lot of the pilot plant extra seedlings and there was still a bunch left at the end. So I just want to make sure we're not destining, that's not right, these seedlings to death.
It seems like we can find places for those between pilot studies or pilot kind of activities that we want to do, but also with our outreach events and other tabling events, we can find places for these throughout the season, I think. I don't think that's unreasonable.
Well, if it's throughout the season, someone has to babysit them in the meantime. So is anyone volunteering?
Yeah, we were able to get them planted with the mayor's summer jobs program.
Yeah,
Various locations. I'll babysit.
Yeah, I think in like some of the groundworks gardens, maybe the school
Yeah,
gardens.
groundworks. The pollinator garden going out of Genziano. And I'd recommend the Asclepias, the tuberosa, and what's the swamp one?
Incarnata,
Incarnata, maybe.
sounds right.
I have plenty of the common milkweed seeds to give away. I mean, common milkweed is wonderful too. It people get, I feel like they get frustrated with it because it's so assertive. Let's just call it that. And I've seen monarchs lay eggs on both Incarnata and tuberosa. I mean, maybe some of the Syriaca, I forget how to say it, but yeah, I think giving if we want to make milkweed a poster child, then people might be more turned on by the Incarnata and the tuberosa, which is the orange butterfly weed, and the Incarnata is this. It makes, like, you can use it as cut flowers, and it like will continue to bloom, which is something that the common milkweed doesn't do. The common milkweed, though, has a smell that you don't get anywhere. You don't get that from the swamp milkweed. You don't get that from this butterfly weed. So I don't know. Maybe one flat of the common milkweed and the others, the tuberosa and the Incarnata. Those are my thoughts anyway.
Forgive my lack of knowledge. Is milkweed the kind of thing that could fill in for some of the little spaces and bump outs that have died off over the past couple of years? Just as a temporary measure, not to get in the way of any planning or process, but if we wind up, because I'm thinking of at my street corner on Beacon here, there's one that just went completely weeded over and then the construction trucks drove on it and now it's mud. But I think they're almost done with the truck part. Would it do well there? Because I would just take a shovel and put it there.
Yeah.
Is there a height limit on the? I mean, I think the bump outs. I don't know what their sightline provisions
If you
are.
get the tuberosas lower, the swamp or the butterfly weed.
Yeah, the common milkweed might get a little tall. They can get fairly tall.
Yeah, for bump outs, we do want daylighting, so we want it to be below sort of eye height for an adult or a person sitting in a car or on a bicycle.
Yeah.
All right, so 10 flats.
10 flats. I'd say if you want to add some little blue stem, that's an amazing plant for integrating into one's property. We don't think about grasses as having the amount of biodiversity support as they do.
Do those also come in flats?
Yep.
So like a couple flats?
Yeah, a couple flats of those. Milkweed.
All right. I can definitely order those if I can find them, of course, which I probably can. Last year, Connor was sort of in charge of handing out seedlings. Well, I guess it might depend a little bit on what time we pick and who can be there, but we're doing, what did I say, May
20th, you said.
20th in the afternoon. Looks like most people are available except, sadly, Amy and Calla, and maybe Dorothy. I think that was one of the.
Yeah, I'm not here either.
So can someone who can be there be in charge of handing out seedlings?
I can do that.
Okay. I know when I did the trees, it was also kind of a lot. So maybe with all these other things going on, I'll only get one pack of 50 trees. So I'm gonna stick with the Cornus Florida, the flowering dogwood, unless anyone has strong say not that. Cool.
I forget, do they come with instructions too that we can give?
Yeah, I have, yeah, I do.
Okay.
If you have a chance to do 2, just doing gray dogwood as a shrub option would be awesome. And I can also help hand out stuff.
Okay.
Be available.
Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna get the materials ready, like a flyer soon, so that we can get it translated by the Somerville Office of Immigrant Affairs, I think, SOIA. Once it's translated, I'll send it around so we can start promoting it. And as we get closer, we can divvy out some more tasks, but I think we kind of are mostly a well-oiled machine at this point, unless we want to add any flair. But for Cal and Dorothy, who this is new for, we've done a number of Arbor Day celebrations, and Jennifer and Leah and others have been also doing a lot of tabling events. So we have like packets of information that we hand out or we have available if people want to take them, lots of different types of flyers. We have gator bags, those green irrigation bags I put on the trees to show people what those are. I usually do a tree planting for the Arbor Day event, have my contractors do it in advance, and then talk about the new trees in the area, and do a mulch spreading demonstration so that people understand how to properly mulch a tree. It's not a volcano, it's a donut. And Chris reads a poem that Malik finds, if he's still willing to do that, or anyone else can volunteer. Last year we had the mayor come to our Arbor Day celebration, so I'll see if she's available to come speak this year as well. Is there anything else I'm forgetting or that we want to add this year?
Could we invite the city councilor for that ward? I don't know which ward that is. It's not coming to mind, but
probably Ward 1. This would be Matt McLaughlin.
That would be great.
Yeah, I did last year too. He just couldn't come. Okay, well, sounds good. I don't want to take up too much more of our precious time, but I will send out information as I have it. And if you guys have ideas in the meantime, send me emails. Yeah, I think it should be great.
I mean, you can add like if seed ball making.
Yeah.
If you want to list the activities, that's something.
And we have lots of children's activities kind of in the works. We can kind of do this, that's standard sort of thing.
Yeah.
The only
you
thing we don't have are those leaf, remember Althea had laser cut those leaf stencils? They're broken. They broke. So, but kids, you know, small children especially seem to really like that because they could trace it and color it. So if anybody has access to a laser cutter and wants to cut out leaf shapes, that would be
Does the
nice.
high school have like a
The
maker
Fab Lab
space?
used to, right? Fab Lab used to have that. Kala, what do you think about that?
Yeah, the Fab Lab does have, I think, like 3D printers and laser cutters. I'm not sure about like access to it, and I don't know how to use them, but I could look into it.
Thank you. That'd be great.
All right, we got a plan.
Super delayed, but I see Crystal has their hand raised. Crystal. Oh, you're muted again. Let me unmute you. Okay.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord, that was ridiculous. Okay, so sorry about that. I really just like GoToWebinar. So two things. May 20th, there are some potential conflicts that I just want to make sure you're aware of in case you're able to be later in the day for the event. Mamas and Garbage to Garden are doing another big compost giveaway that morning from 10 to 2, and that was actually super popular last year. We had to do 3 of them, but this might be the only one that we do in Somerville this year because of stupid calendaring things, and so I'm really worried that they're going to have most of their Somerville annual customers like at that, and it would be a great opportunity to give them a flyer for the city's event later that day, but also potentially a conflict depending on the timing. There's also a big seedling swap that I know of in one of my gardening social groups that's happening that day, 12 to 2. And the Union Square Farmers Market will just have restarted and ends that day at, I think, 1 or 1:30 p.m. So those are like things to potentially see if you can be scheduled around on May 20th. And in terms of if there are extra seedlings, one other thing that is reasonably new information from the Mama's Gardening Collective is that we now have at least 2 gardens that are aiming to be low maintenance, natives prioritized, pollinators prioritized, which would be perfect for having some native fruiting trees or extra goldenrod or whatnot if we have them extra at the end of an event. We currently have an entire backyard that the resident is like, I'm just not going to use this. Please fill it with something if you can. So wanted to make sure that those were in awareness.
Thank you. That's a lot going on that day.
Sounds like afternoon then.
Yeah, maybe we'll do 1 to 3.
I would super appreciate it. I would like to be there too. Thanks.
I heard somebody else.
Amy chatted that it's Leslie University's graduation. I'm assuming there's probably a lot of graduations on that day, that means, which might make transportation challenging. But I feel like further into the summer, there's just going to be more conflicts. So
yeah, there's not going to be any good day, particularly this year.
Right. And I don't suppose Sunday, I guess the other option would be the 21st, but I don't know if that's really going to relieve the pressures of scheduling for that weekend in any real sense. There's probably a lot going on that day too.
There is, most of us were available between 10 and 1 on Sunday if we want to switch to Sunday. Anyone know of any conflicting activities besides possibly graduations on Sunday, May 21st?
Honestly, if I got to pick, and I don't, I would say the city staff and potential mayor availability probably takes priority. I'm comfortable having us be the afternoon event on Saturday. I'm also comfortable with Sunday, and I just don't want to make it any more difficult than it has to be for the folks doing the heavy lifting.
I'm agnostic personally. I need you guys though, so I could give the mayor 2 options and see if she's available for either one, maybe as the next step. And if she is, we'll do that one.
Sounds right.
Okay.
I thought it was really.
Vanessa, oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it was cool having the mayor there last year. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Vanessa, any word on the Tufts, when Tufts is having their Arbor Day? Okay.
No, so I sent them an email today, but I haven't heard back.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you'd heard anything or. Okay.
No.
All right.
Okay. Thanks very much.
I'm sorry. One quick thing. The route banner. I have that. We could bring that. I still would like to talk to Abby and Ben about the work that they offered to do on that, but they're very busy right now. I think I haven't heard back from them. But we could bring that and then start hanging it around after Arbor Day. But is that, you know, we're still having trouble with the map on that. So unless we can get that squared away in the next few weeks, it's difficult for people to participate, but we could still hang it as a visual enticement to passersby. I can toss that in the bag.
Sure.
If folks think that's a good idea. Yeah, okay.
I feel like any banner that is tree related shows more, you know, brings more people in like, hey, what's that? So sounds good to me.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. This is going to be a cool event. And I remain impressed that it's gotten so many different piece parts to it. Like that's a lot of momentum on that event. All right, ongoing work. Do we have anything further on Adopt a Tree?
I don't think so. The pieces are falling into place. Amy created the Google map so that we can see the locations of the trees set to be adopted. We'll be able to see which trees are being adopted. We've got our email correspondence queued up. We've got the form revised. We're waiting for tags. They'll be ready next week. So I think just watch, I'll send an email out to everyone with a sign-up sheet for tagging trees and instructions that go along with that as we've done in the past. So you can look for that probably very early May, I think is what we're on track for.
Very cool.
Can you give a quick 1-minute spiel of what that would involve for Kala and Dorothy?
Yep. Dorothy and Kala, we each year since 2020, I guess, we started in the year of the pandemic, we've been tagging our newly planted trees. So for this spring, we'll be putting colorful, fluorescently colored tags on trees that were planted last fall and last spring. And we ask people to adopt these trees, to keep an eye on these trees and to water these trees in the summer months. And so each tag has a QR code that you can scan, or you can, there's also a web address on there. You can go directly through a web address, but it brings you to a form that folks can fill out to say where their tree is located. They name their trees. We get a lot of really interesting names for the trees. That's always very fun. And then this year, thanks to Crystal, we're able to give them an option to actually go download themselves an adoption certificate too. So it's just, we've got a really nicely evolving program here to bring in our community to help us take care of our newly planted trees. And when I send out the email, you'll be able to read all of the instructions on how to do that, what the tags look like. I might have one here. Yeah. So the tags look like this. I don't know. It says adopt me. There's a QR code. We've got the address of the tree written in here. And that all goes into a form that we keep track of, that we'll now be able to keep track of thanks to Amy on a Google map. So it's been a really successful program. Last year we had almost 40% of our trees adopted, which I think is good. I don't know, I thought that was a pretty good number. I think it tends to go up each year, so we're hoping this year for 50% or more. I just saw your comment, Chris. Yes, good.
Open secret that many people can adopt the same tree, and we're totally fine with that.
Yeah.
I would love to publish just the names, maybe without addresses, because I think some of them are just phenomenal.
I think it's some sort of blog post, or some of them are just funny and very clever. I wish I could think of one offhand. Can you, Leah? I can't think of one.
We have named the tree, which is an elm tree that I have adopted, JT Elm, because it is a Jefferson elm.
Oh yes, I love that.
My spouse is very proud.
I think I saw that. Yes. Yeah. Very cool.
All right. So that's rocking. Do we have outreach?
If I could just take a couple of minutes, I wanted to talk a little bit about tabling events. I think that we're finding that our tabling events appear to be pretty effective in getting the word out about our committee and also about getting people engaged. I wanted to take advantage of some that are coming up that might be able to be on the tail end of our Arbor Day celebration, maybe sometime in May. So let me back up just a little bit. I went through the adoption data, and I made like a really rough graph about when trees get adopted. Most of them get adopted in May. Of all the trees that are adopted, almost 60% are adopted in May, just as we tag the trees. So I thought if maybe we could do either the Summer Streets Carnival event in early June, or one of the early June farmers markets at Union Square, we could maybe keep the momentum going into the hot summer months when we kind of really need people to be aware, to remember they've adopted one, or to adopt one, to look for those tags. I wanted to run that by the group and get your feedback on that. The Summer Streets Carnival is June 7th. And then there are, of course, several farmers markets at Union Square that we could apply for. The dates would be the 3rd, the 10th, the 17th, or the 24th. I'd be happy to send out a poll to see who has availability, but I was just wondering what your thoughts were about that timing for kind of continuing our outreach.
I see.
I think that's a great idea. I think Carnival would be a great event, but I can't actually do that one. But I think that would be a great event to do.
Yeah, I liked that one because it's in East Somerville.
Yeah.
And that's a space where we're kind of lacking in our canopy. And so I agree, Amy. It would be nice to have a presence there during that. And I think it's in the afternoon from 2 to 6. I'm happy to organize that and kind of send out a general interest poll to see who's available to help out with that.
So I don't know if this might be useful, but Mama sometimes does a table at the farmers market in conjunction with another organization. And I'd certainly be happy to share table space and table coverage responsibilities with someone from urban forestry. And then we'd only need to have one person per org on shift at a time to sort of say, this is Mamas. Mamas is not of the city specifically, but Mamas is also Somerville and Medford, and have somebody give that spiel. And then somebody be able to be and this is urban forestry. Urban forestry is a specific entity within the city, and this is what we do and what we're looking for. I feel like there would be a pretty natural pairing there, particularly if it's the Gardening Collective that's doing the tabling.
Yeah, I like that, especially because now they're making people rent or tents. Everybody has to have a tent, which probably makes sense in the summer, but you have to get one of the pop-up canopies. It would be nice to share that too. Yeah, what dates is that, Crystal? Do you know? Are you there every week?
So during Union Square Farmers Market summers, I am often the point person for the community fridge pickup. Monmouth has not committed currently to a community table like specific date yet, but we could compare notes, preferably over text message if possible.
Sure, yeah.
I can figure out a reasonable.
Yeah, if it's okay with the rest of the group, I'd be willing to do that with you. We can organize that and yeah, see who else is interested. But yeah, that'd be fun. And I like this cross-pollination thing. Not that they're really closely related, but when Leah and Tori and I did the tabling event at the Winter Market, we were paired with the city's new Department of Racial and Social Justice, and that was a really nice mix. We got a lot of people who were interested in talking to us, and I just felt like that worked out really well. That kind of a nice pairing, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I could also envision making one of those spinning wheels where you like spin an arrow and there are different like programs that are related for the two entities. And if the arrow ends on, if people don't know how to start a conversation, there's an easy conversation starter there. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, interesting idea.
All right. Yeah, my feeling is that we've got sufficient materials at this point that I'm totally confident when we have people who want to go table saying yes, certainly, and it's just a question of availability and interest.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else from outreach?
No, I think I'll leave it at that for now. The Root organization is expressing some interest in reviving some sort of program in collaboration with the Tufts group, but we're having some trouble getting together. So hopefully sometime in the near future, we'll have something to bring, you know, to bring to the committee then to talk about, but it's kind of on the back burner right now.
Fair, we've got a lot going on. So species selection and planting protocol, folks, where is our updated recommendation list? I kid. What's going on?
We have one. It's in progress. It is formatted. There's a couple tweaks to make before it goes public. Vanessa, do you think if I make your updates, could I send it around to the group for not comment? Maybe just for a, like, if someone like raises a red flag, we can hold it till I guess we'll have time to review it at our next meeting before Arbor Day. Is that actually probably not? It might be really tight.
We do.
Is that true?
It's tight, but we do.
2 days, one work day.
Yeah.
Is that enough to print some flyers?
Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can get it sent around ahead of time so that folks can have their suggestions ready to go. But yeah, we're able to get it one sheet of paper, double-sided, trees, shrubs, understory, top recommended species, and hopefully a font that is still legible.
Yeah. It's a nice list.
That's fantastic. And for everybody, the concern about sending it out over email is that we're not allowed to deliberate on topics before the committee outside of the context of an open public meeting. And so we have, our interpretation of that is we're not allowed to like have a shared document and all of us mark it up with comments because that would be inaccessible to the public. It's a really nice kind of toy problem for open meeting law. So But we are totally cool to share a draft ahead of time. We all think on it, and then we talk about it at the meeting. That's totally fine. So that's what we're going to do.
And just to, I can give as our new folks are thinking about what groups you might want to join, species selection and planting protocol, also SAP. We might have to change our name to not conflict with the, or is it SPAP is the pollinator? Yeah. All right, so it's SPAP and SAP, very, very minor difference there. SAP is Jennifer, Tori, and myself, and Amy on occasional visitor. And we get together and think about what species we want to be planting in Somerville. We help give Vanessa recommendations on street trees that we'd like to see planted more frequently. And then we're developing this resource handout for public. We also get together and advise on when we have developers who come present plans to the Urban Forestry Committee. We're hoping to have another iteration of handout to give to developers on trees we would recommend for different situations there. We also did a pilot project last year where we planted small, very small trees in 4 test plots, and then filled the tree pits with green mulch. We're sort of monitoring those, and potentially we'll be able to do another one of those initiatives this year, pending how many volunteers we get to help us out. So that's my pitch for SAP.
All right. And this is very informal. There is no process of confirmation or being blessed by the committee. You just show up to the meetings.
Yep. And usually these sort of little ongoing work update groups are smaller groups as long as it's under quorum, which is 6 people. So as long as these subgroups are under 6 people, we can meet and deliberate and look at shared documents, as long as they're not shared with the entire group. So we have sort of created these little factions based on individuals' interests and availabilities to commit to things. And then we bring those little research groups back to the larger group at our monthly meetings.
And if we ever did anything contentious, then the trick is that we can't have a majority meet and decide what's going to happen at the real meeting.
That's why the sub meetings have to be under quorum, because you're.
But we can bring in as many community members and non-committee members as we want. So it's also a great way to engage with folks who are not formally on the committee but want to participate. So moving on, do we have anything new about pesticides at Maxwell's Green? This feels like,
and I'm feeling such shame around it. Yes, no, I don't.
I echo exactly that, the tree preservation ordinance. I too feel shame. Anything?
I do as well for Somerville Most Wanted Weeds, so we can just do 3 in a row right here.
3 in
a row.
But you could give
Leah.
quick updates on what they are.
Yeah, thank you, Leah.
I just want to back up just quickly to the tree preservation ordinance. The working group for the youth membership will be meeting on May 1st. So we've got a draft in that we've been working on, and we're going to try to finalize this. Chris, I'd like to send it your way so you can cast your eye and see what you think. And but I hope to have something by next meeting on that. Just so a little bit of an update there.
Oh, fantastic. That is great. Any questions about?
I'm sorry, Jennifer, what is it that you're working on and have next president's meeting?
Of course, yeah, I'm sorry. The tree preservation ordinance that we talked about earlier, that is our guidelines for private trees, but that also was the impetus for forming this committee. We have room for 2 youth members, and we have Kala now and Murphy. And we're trying to do is broaden the requirements to try to engage more members of that from the community of that cohort. And so we're looking to present a revision to the city council to approve it.
And this is something that the city council is totally enthused about receiving suggestions on the tree preservation ordinance from us, because we're actually the group that is working with the committee and driving the process, we're the best possible group to have that conversation. So if there are things that we think ought to be in that ordinance, we could just talk about them and then suggest them to the city council, and then they will do what a city council do and probably make changes for reasons that come up at the city council level. But so in particular, if you see or hear of interesting ordinance type stuff that other cities are doing that relates to trees and understory plantings and so on, bring them in and let's talk about them. Someone forwarded to me, for example, a city, Canton, Michigan, had a tree permitting process that I haven't had a chance to look at, but apparently some court somewhere declared it invalid. And I don't think it's the same as ours. I think they may have actually overreached and done the thing that we were cautioned against, which was to put a flat ban on the removal of trees, which the court said, that's too much, you can't just prevent, which is why we regulate and ask for compensation rather than just banning. But if you hear about stuff like that, we're the place to talk about it. So bring it on in. And then GLX greening. I'm curious, do we have anything new
Could
there?
I just give the Maxwell's Green
Yes.
pesticides is around, I noticed, gosh, it was last summer that Maxwell's Green uses some sort of pesticide, and I got all upset, and then I was like, oh, I'll write a letter, and I haven't done it. So, but it would be a letter from the Urban Forestry Committee saying, please, Maxwell's Green is first of all, it's a publicly accessible, there are families who live in Maxwell's Green. It's supposed to be sort of this wonderful environment to use the green space, and they put poison on the lawn. So, which says like, keep your dogs and children away. Anyway, that's that one.
All right. Do we have anything on GLX?
I do not.
All right.
Do you want me to mention briefly what the Somerville's wanted weeds is too?
Yes.
Thanks for mentioning those briefly. So this is, I just put the link in the chat. This is a memo that's up on the city website, kind of listing weeds, encouraging removal of these weeds, but we had some issues with some of the species on here. And we proposed a new group of species that we'd like to see listed instead. And the city was open to us sending that, but they wanted to kind of put it into a format that we thought would be useful. And so the next step is kind of formatting that, getting pictures of all them in a way that is identifiable, and that's the part that I haven't worked on. So that's the piece that we're stuck at. But if either of you new members would be interested in working on that, you can just let me know.
Amy, maybe we can support each other.
Yeah.
Have a tandem. But I have the most wanted weeds poster, which I will bring to Arbor Day with the big, and just, I don't know, tape over the fleetwing.
Yeah.
And maybe the horseweed. I kind of think the horseweed's pretty, but
yeah,
I can bring that and we can modify it,
If we ever have not enough time on an agenda, or not enough things on an agenda, I'm curious about if anybody cares about Siberian squill, the scilla, the little tiny blue things that bloom that I was told were invasive, but they're like the nicest kind of invasive because they're super early and they don't do anything bad to anybody, but they're just not from here. But anyway, that's not on the agenda. If we ever have a huge amount of space, I'm curious if anybody cares. That brings us to approving the minutes from March 16th, which I read through. I think they look great. Did anybody not have a chance to look or have any issues with them? Yes, Jennifer Clifford.
I have a very, very, very minor issue with it. My name is listed twice, once in the attended, and I was not in attendance. I am listed as being not in attendance, but my name is also in the other one. So if you could just remove that. Just, for the sake of nitpicking, but yeah. But that was it. Otherwise, I did read through and it looked like a good meeting.
All right, so with that modification, which I trust Vanessa to make, I would like to do a roll call vote on approving the minutes of March 16th. So I'll go back to my list. Amy Myrtle,
I will approve.
Breck Miller,
Approve.
Calla Taylor,
Approve.
I approve. Dorothy Supit, not forgetting you this time.
I think I'll abstain since I wasn't on the committee and wasn't here and wouldn't know if they're correct or not.
Well done. Jennifer Clifford,
I approve.
Leah Grossman,
Approve.
Vanessa Keeley,
Approve.
approve, and Tori Antonino.
Approve.
All right, with that, we have approved the meeting, the minutes. We are out of topics. Before we adjourn, any final comments from anybody?
I have two questions, which the whole committee doesn't have to stay. Chris, if you can just answer them, or Vanessa. I want to know why we're using GoToMeeting and why we're not meeting in person.
Well, I can tell you GoToMeeting is what the city decided to grab onto in the chaotic times of 2020 early, and we have stayed there. And there is a motion afoot at the city level to move to Zoom. Like
It's going to happen probably in September.
And city technology changes slowly for lots and lots of good reasons, and a couple less good, but mostly good reasons. And then in person, we get to pick. It's been convenient for most people to be remote, but if the timing works and people want to do an in-person meeting, I mean, it's at our discretion. If it works for people, we can do it. Let's actually throw that on the agenda for next time to talk about, especially when the weather's nice. We can do someplace comfortable and outdoors, and we should be open to it.
FYI, I probably could not meet in person even if it were outdoors, just because I now have a meeting that is directly after this meeting.
Mm-hmm. And then Calla Taylor, I saw you had a hand up.
Yeah, I was wondering, I noticed, I think this came up a bit earlier about like the minutes rotation, and so at some point we'll all be responsible for taking minutes, and I was wondering like how that works. I've never been on like a board, so I don't really know how to like take minutes.
I would be happy to tag team with you. I mean, you just basically have, what I do is I copy paste the agenda, and then as people talk, I kind of take notes about what they say, and then I go through. It takes about an hour afterwards to turn that into something that's language, and then we send it to Vanessa, and she puts it on city letterhead, and that's it. And the committee takes a look, and if there's something that is incorrect, like somebody being listed as both present and absent, it's not huge. It's just basically meeting notes that are cleaned up a little.
Okay,
yeah, I always send out the Word document version of the agenda to the person taking minutes, unless I forget, in which case remind me, so that you can just type directly in there. And I always review and edit the minutes before sending them out. So, if you miss something or don't know what we're talking about, I can fill it in too. So no problem.
And I will say
that you can.
The very best minutes don't try to capture verbatim people's quotes. It's impossible, and you always get it wrong anyway. Nobody can do that. It does capture, like, if a link if there was a link, grab the link. It's usually in the chat as well. And then if we decided something and voted on it, that's the most important thing, because it is the record of our votes.
Awesome, thank you.
And sorry, one more thing. I think I put you sort of near the bottom of the list, so you'll see a bunch of minutes before it's your turn. So you'll at least have a sense of what kind of information we usually include.
Excellent. Well, it is 2 past the half hour. I will propose that we close this meeting. Any objections to that?
One objection, Chris, will you send me the language around 90 Washington that you had, so I can send out an email?
I will text that to you right now.
Perfect. No objection.
All right. Thanks for a great meeting, everybody. It's fantastic to be at almost full strength. happy spring.
Second the meeting ending. We need that.
Great to
Great night,
see
you guys.
everyone. Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone. Bye.